Hello, the following is a group presentation on Pediculosis Capitis that was created for you by a group of school nurses. As this is a recurrent issue within the school setting, we decided that it would be helpful to explain a few things about head lice. In this presentation, you will learn what a head lice looks like, the life cycle of the head louse, signs and symptoms to look for, modes of transmission, ways to diagnose it. We will also discuss treatment and ways to prevent the spread or further complications. So what exactly is head lice? Head lice are tiny insects that feed on the blood from human scalps. They're typically tan or grayish in color, but with darker hair, they may appear darker in color, which is important to note. They can be very small as a strawberry seed. They're very common in children ages 3 to 11, but they really can occur in people at all ages. It's also important to note this is not a sign of poor personal hygiene or an unclean living environment, and it's highly treatable. Head lice also do not carry bacterial or viral infections. Head lice go through 3 stages, which we will discuss in this presentation. These 3 stages are eggs, nymph, and then they progress to adult lice. Nits are head lice eggs. As you can see on the picture on the right, they appear like dandruff. They're often very small and usually yellow to white in color. They are laid by adult females and typically adhere to the hair shaft closest to the scalp. As they resemble dandruff, the main difference that I'd like to point out is that dandruff can be much easier to remove, where nits or eggs can tend to be a little stickier and a little bit more difficult to remove from the hair. They do hatch typically within a week. When the egg hatches, it releases a nymph, which is what you can see in the picture on the right. The knit shell becomes much more visible but stays a dull yellow in color. It does remain attached to the hair shaft and will mature and become an adult within 7 days of hatching. The picture that you see on the left is that of an adult lice. They have 6 legs, each with a claw, and tend to be about the size of a sesame seed on average, to give you a point of reference. They will appear darker in people with darker hair, which may make it more difficult to diagnose. Females are larger than males and can lay up to 8 nits a day. They can live up to 30 days on a person's head, feeding several times a day for survival on blood. Without a good blood source, they will die within 1 to 2 days. As a parent, there are several signs and symptoms you want to look for to indicate that your child may have head lice. Most often you will see them itching and scratching intensely, and they may report that they feel like something's crawling on their skin. At that point, as you inspect their hair and their scalp, you should see visible eggs or nits or maybe even live lice, which is an indication that you have a head lice infestation. So your child has head lice, but how did they get it? Head lice can crawl but cannot jump or fly, which is very important to remember. They are wingless. They're typically transmitted by direct head-to-head contact. Most oftenly it will occur within a family or when a child has close contact at school or play with other children. It is a possibility to get head lice through indirect transmission, but not as likely. This can include methods like sharing hats, scarves, brushes and combs, headphones, pillows, towels and bedding, or at school when they store items together. The best way to diagnose your child with head lice is to identify the live louse or live nymph on the head. It's best to do it when the hair is wet, and you can use a lubricated product such as conditioner to make the comb go through smoother. You start with a lice comb, which is pictured on the right. You comb the hair starting at the shaft or the scalp and go all the way to the end of the hair. Once you have identified that your child has head lice, you need to treat it. And there are many, many ways that you can treat it using over-the-counter products. Some of them are listed here, which include permethrin or pyrethrin, and typically cost around $20 a treatment. Also important to note is that there are prescription treatments available for head lice. Some of these are included on this slide, which include Ovide, benzoyl alcohol lotion, Natroba, and Scalice, which is the newest treatment available for head lice. These typically are much more expensive, costing between $180 to $270 a treatment. After treating the hair with either an over-the-counter or prescription strength treatment, it is so important that you continue to comb the hair with that fine-tooth metal nit comb. That is the only way you're going to prevent these nits from hatching. So as you see in the picture, you start again at the scalp, you begin combing all the way to the end of the hair, and your goal is to remove any nits that are remaining in the scalp. What we find as school nurses is that many parents do a fantastic job treating their child's head when they identify head lice, but the environment also needs to be treated. Please remember that anything the kid lays on, such as towels, sheets, clothing, needs to be laundered in hot water, at least above 140 degrees Fahrenheit. You also need to dry those items in the dryer on a hot setting for at least 40 minutes. Any items that cannot be washed or dried, such as stuffed animals or toys, need to be placed in a sealed plastic bag for 2 weeks so that the lice can die off. Furniture needs to be vacuumed, carpets, seats, pillows, all things in the environment need to be tended to. Important to note, as you have probably heard in the media, is that we are now seeing lice that is resistant to a lot of the over-the-counter treatments. That is largely why we're seeing an increased popularity in prescription strength lice treatment. It is a possibility. So should you find that the over-the-counter products are not working, you do need to go to a prescription strength product. There are a few complications of an untreated head lice infestation that are worth noting. You may notice swollen lymph nodes in the child. You may notice hyperpigmented skin, which are patches of skin that become darker in color around the normal skin, which you can see in some of the pictures to the right. You may see a secondary cellulitis, such as a swollen red area of skin that feels hot and tender, and you may also note eye infections. So how do you prevent head lice? Unfortunately, for most school-age children, it's tough to avoid, but you can teach them a couple safe practices that can limit the likelihood of them getting it. Teach them to avoid direct head-to-head contact, to not share personal items such as hats, scarves, hairbrushes, headphones, shower caps. They need to have their own space to put their personal belongings, such as closets and lockers. They should not be sharing them with others. And it's also important to note that you need to completely follow all of the instructions and recommendations for the head lice treatment that you choose. Thank you so much for listening to our presentation on head lice or Pediculosis Capitis. We hope that this has helped you gain a little insight as to what they look like, how they are spread, and how they can be prevented.